modalities and features in this talk. Pathogenesis. We see urine is formed in kidneys and pass through the ureters and bladder to the urethra. Regularly, organisms are flushed out. In renal infections, mostly the access is through the lower urinary tract. Unless there is some kind of immunocompromise, this ascent does not occur. Hematogenous infection is most commonly seen in tuberculosis. So tuberculosis is through hematogenous and lymphatic. Rest of the bacterial infections is mostly through the lower urinary tract. Okay. First we'll see tuberculosis, which is most important, seen in adults in second 4 decades. It's very uncommon in children and 30% you see bilaterally. And the incidence is rising with increased incidence of HIV, and the symptoms are very non-specific, atypical and insidious, and a high index of suspicion and is needed. The diagnosis is often difficult and delayed, leading to irreparable damage to the kidneys. So what are the investigations? We have plenty of investigations. Whenever you find sterile pyuria, you don't find any organism, but you find pustules, you consider renal tuberculosis. But 10% of the cases, you cannot find tuberculous bacilli in urine, and 10 to 20% are culture negative, and culture also takes a long time. Recently, we have PCR and quantiferon TB Gold, which are a little accurate as well as fast. Now, imaging has a major role both in initial workup as well as during follow-up. And a negative chest radiograph and tuberculosis test cannot rule out the diagnosis of extrapulmonary TB. Only 10% of cases will have active chest tuberculosis in case of renal tuberculosis. Less than 50% will have some kind of chest X-ray abnormalities. Others are all maybe negative. Next, pathology. Let's see, whenever there is tuberculous infection, the tuberculous bacilli, they will deposit in the cortex. I don't know for whatever reason, the theoretical books mention that the upper and lower poles are involved more commonly. So the bacilli are deposited in the periglomerular region, and then from there they migrate through the loop of Henle towards the medulla. These are the renal medulla, and these renal papillae are involved. This renal papillae, once they erode, they enter the collecting system. So this is how the renal infection occurs. Okay. Next, after this pathology, we'll just see how we find various patterns of renal manifestations on different imaging modalities. Plain X-ray may give a clue to various clues to tuberculous origin. We can see here lymph nodal calcifications, or you can see suprarenal or renal calcifications. Again, calcifications in the region of bladder, the seminal vesicle, and prostatic calcifications. And what is this? Bilateral psoas abscess. Okay, these are all clues. Anytime we see irregular, dense calcifications in abdominal X-ray, atypical calcification, please think of abdominal tuberculosis, some organ somewhere. Okay, plain radiograph in the region of kidney. What are the findings we see? There can be many different kinds of calcifications. These triangular or curvilinear calcifications are specific for papillary calcifications, very highly sensitive for renal tuberculosis. Again, caseous cavities may calcify as dense amorphous calcifications. Then this lobar distribution of calcification is pathognomonic of tuberculosis. Why? Because whenever there is destruction of renal parenchyma, calcification occurs between the boundary of viable and non-viable tissue. So this lobar pattern is highly specific for tuberculosis. Next, IVU is a gold standard in early renal tuberculosis. So this is not an obsolete examination. This is the gold standard for early changes of renal tuberculosis. CT or any other modality cannot give this finding. So the earliest findings we find are calyceal dilatation, minimal calyceal dilatation, loss of sharpness and fuzziness of the papillae. This sharpness and fuzziness, initially it will be fuzzy, later it may become ragged or moth-eaten appearance. And then this papillary necrosis is highly specific for renal tuberculosis. So this papillary necrosis, normal papillary, this is whenever there is necrosis in this area, that is fornicial. Renal fornicial necrosis, whenever there is necrosis in this area, that is central. Central is because of ischemic origin. Any old timers as an examiner, if at all they give an IVP or IVU, please expect these questions. So this is central necrosis is due to renal ischemia. This corner is due to erosion from bacilli, forming cell necrosis. Okay, here you are seeing a deep cup, central necrosis. See, this is a claw-shaped papilla. You are seeing different lobes. Tuberculosis affects lobe by lobe, and we said already upper and lower lobes are affected more commonly. So the changes are more predominant in these areas. Then cavitation, initial cavitation. These are the early changes of renal tuberculosis seen only by IVU. Next, advanced stages. In advanced cases, we see extensive cavitation. These are contrast-filled cavities within the renal parenchyma. Then you have multiple fibrotic strictures. How does it occur? Because of healing. So this varying fibrotic stricture is again hallmark of renal tuberculosis. What is hiked up? I have just put some mnemonics like hiked up pelvis. Whenever the lower pole calyx is involved and it is retracted upwards, this hiked up pelvis is specific for renal tuberculosis. Again, the Kerr kings, they occur whenever there are kings at the renal pelvis. They are named as Kerr kings. Then again, other advanced changes in renal tuberculosis, we have fibrotic strictures as well as cortical scars. And another hallmark of renal tuberculosis is this uneven calyectasis and small renal pelvis. See the calyces, different calyces are of different sizes. So what is this? We are not able to see a calyx over here. So this is a phantom calyx. Whenever there is a stricture over here and infundibulum, the parenchyma is not able to excrete into the calyx. So you are not able to appreciate the calyx. This is a phantom calyx. Multiple strictures, again cavity. Again here, uneven calyectasis, stricture, along with it, what you are seeing is a very small volume bladder, thimble bladder. Again, calcifications and mass lesions are also common. This is a MACT, plain CT. And what is this? This is a calculus. Normally, calculus in the renal pelvis or lower calyx, they point towards pelvis. Here it is going up because of the shape. You just see the shape. Because of a hiked up pelvis. So, calculi in this tuberculosis also will be of different bizarre shapes because the calyces and pelvis are all distorted and deformed. Even you can find pseudocalculi. Discrete punctate calcifications are also seen in this case. Again, final advanced stages of renal tuberculosis, you will have autonephrectomy. What is autonephrectomy? Whenever you find it is a process of formation of a non-functioning kidney of any size with calcification. The size may be any size, but it's a non-functioning kidney and there is some amount of calcification. And you can find perinephric abscesses as well as various fistulas. Again, you can see the contrast outside the collecting system. Normally, the fistulas are to the duodenum and the ascending colon from right kidney or stomach and descending colon on the left kidney. Now, what is the role of ultrasound, CT and MR? It's of minimal or limited value in initial and minimal renal tuberculosis. It is useful only for visualization of kidney, which is not visualized on IVU. Whenever there is mass effect and renal evaluation is not done at IVU, you can go for next examination, ultrasound and CT. So, what are the findings we see in ultrasound? A normal sonogram in the presence of non-functioning kidney is very typical of tuberculosis. So, a normal kidney does not rule out renal tuberculosis. So, what are the regions we see? We may see focal renal masses, maybe granulomas, maybe cavities, and this focal calyectasis is highly specific for renal tuberculosis. Then again we see focal calcification and tuberculous hydronephrosis or pyelonephrosis, renal abscesses, and complications of tuberculosis such as perinephric spread and abscesses, fistulae and soil surface, again they can be evaluated in ultrasound. How do you see perinephric spread? Whenever ultrasound is a dynamic examination, whenever we ask the patient to breathe and the kidney is not moving, we should think of perinephric spread. CT. Again, CT is more sensitive for fine calcifications, uneven calyectasis, for defining renal scars and looking at mass lesions, and it is very sensitive for urothelial thickening, especially contrast enhanced CT can show urothelial thickening very clearly. So the combination of uneven calyectasis with urothelial thickening and lack of pelvic dilatation. Pelvis is dilated, pelvis is not dilated. So that is suggestion of renal tuberculosis. On non-advanced CT, you can see punctate calcification, or you can see caseous masses calcifying as soft calcific densities, or typical final stages lobar calcification. Again CT, what we are seeing here, multiple bilateral granulomas with here loss of corticomedullary differentiation. Again here communication of pelvic alveolar system with a cavity. Again here you are seeing focal uneven caliectasis. See here the enhancing urothelium, it's a contrast enhancing CT and multiple retroperitoneal lymph nodes. So this retroperitoneal lymph node you may think of malignancy, but this uneven caliectasis you should think of tuberculosis. Finally, again see four nephrograms, small kidney, loss of corticomedullary differentiation, para-aortic lymph nodal mass. You have a dilated ureter with urothelium thickening. All are pointing towards renal tuberculosis. Again CT, this is a coronal section image. You are seeing cortical thinning as well as cortical scarring. This is very specific for renal tuberculosis along with caliectasis. Again, a small contracted kidney with caliectasis and hydronephrosis. See the urothelial thickening. Chronic case, that's why it's not enhancing. Again, CT is very useful in defining the retroperitoneal areas for knowing the extension of disease, involvement of bowel or perinephric abscesses, see a perinephric extension of a tuberculous abscess, and any subcutaneous collections and spinal involvement. Next we come to MR. Basically MR is a very sensitive modality to know the real features of renal tuberculosis, but it is not done in all cases. It is done in very few cases where CT and ultrasound are unequivocal, or in pediatric and pregnant patients where there are radiation issues, and in patients with renal failure, non-contrast MR can be done. Precision method MR, it can very clearly differentiate hydronephrosis from pyenephrosis, and ADV values, again they are saying you have to mention the non-invasive biomarkers for renal fibrosis. Then MRU and conventional MRI for comprehensive evaluation of urinary tract. I think Dr. Vijayavaskar is going to tell about it. Next MR, I'll just show few representation images because we don't do so many MR examinations in renal tuberculosis. What we have is again focal caliectasis, cavity communicating with the calyces, urothelial thickening and para-aortic necrotic lymph nodal mass. Again this is T1 with contrast images, this is T2, both are fat chart images, this is T2. Again multiple hypointense granulomas along with caliectasis here, or the hypointense granulomas in right kidney, caliectasis in left kidney, and intermediate signal because of caseous debris. Few images, again complete thinning of parenchyma, hydronephrosis over here with renal tuberculosis case. Same stitches over here, hydronephrosis here, and reconstructed image. This is a beautiful image from Indian Journal of Radiology. We have a two-part article. I think that should be the Bible for renal tuberculosis. Sinevan Vachan et al. This gives a pictorial depiction of all the renal units. Please go through it. Next comes non-tuberculous renal infections, in which we will see pyelonephritis and rest of the cases. Pyelonephritis is nothing but tubulointerstitial inflammatory reaction involving both renal pelvis, that is pyelo, as well as parenchyma, nephritis. So commonly bacteria, which is more common, that's E. coli, especially women and children, ascending infection we have seen. Hematogenous is less common, Stevens, Staph aureus. Less than 50 years of age, the infection is more common in females, especially sexually active women, it's more common than men. More than 50 years, men will have prostatic hypertrophy, patients come with BPH, so it's more common in men. And most of these cases will have some kind of predisposing factors, especially diabetes. Diagnosis is essentially clinical, imaging is not at all necessary in an uncomplicated case. What are the indications? There are specific indications given in radiographics, please go through this. Whenever patient fails for therapy within 72 hours of initiating IV antibiotic therapy, or when we are suspecting functional and structural abnormalities, when patient is having recurrent episodes of renal infection, and patients when they are at risk for rapidly evolving complications, or to characterize the severity of infection and to see the extent of organ damage, you do imaging, otherwise it's not at all necessary. So again, IVU normally 75% of the cases, and other cases you may see different findings. Focal renal masses or renal enlargement, striated or delayed nephrogram, delayed calyceal appearance time, and delayed dilatation or effacement of selective system. Pathologically, all of this is because of renal mucosal edema. See here, enlargement, subtle enlargement, effacement of calyces, enlargement of kidney. Again, ultrasound. Ultrasound is normal in most of the cases. Ultrasound is mainly in children to rule out congenital anomalies. Again, what do we see in ultrasound? Changes in renal parenchyma due to edema. So, this may appear with slight renal enlargement, renal sinus fat obliteration or small granulomas. Again, changes in echogenicity if there is edema, hypoechoic, if there is hemorrhage, hyperechoic, loss of corticomedullary differentiation, granulomas, and early abscess formation. And Doppler will show areas of hypoperfusion. CT is the modality of choice, and non-contrast CT will give you information about any air present or calculi or hemorrhage, whether there is any renal enlargement or any other obstruction. Contrast enhanced CT shows a more specific finding. If you find this, you should consider the case to be acute pyelonephritis, that is a striated nephrogram. You have alternating bands of hypo and hyperdense contrast uptake. So, what are the findings of CT? We have seen only one finding, we will see all the findings. So, initially delayed opacification, delayed persistent contrast enhancement, striated or streaky contrast enhancement. Anything can be present in case of pyelonephritis. Or sometimes a wedge-shaped area of hypoperfusion may be present, which may mimic a tumor or a trauma case or contusion. And CT also gives very clear depiction of abscess or perinephric extension. Next comes the renal abscess. Renal abscess occurs whenever there is untreated or inadequately treated acute pyelonephritis. It progresses to abscess. So, abscess, what do you see in abscess? You have low attenuation areas with a thick enhancing ring or a capsule, a desensation thickening, fat stranding, and there may be gas within abscess cavity. See here you have again very nice hypodense areas within the kidney, multiple abscesses with perinephric extension. Again here a solitary abscess with a hypodense central area with enhancing irregular capsule. What is this? Thick enhancing capsule involving the perinephric area. Renal abscess. Anybody? Perinephric abscess. A as well as in the perinephric region, predominantly involving the perinephric region. Okay. The next entity is emphysematous pyelonephritis. Emphysematous pyelonephritis is the presence of gas within both renal parenchyma as well as perinephric space. Remember, it's not the collective system, it's parenchyma. So, most commonly associated with diabetes and more common in females. There are two types, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 you have renal parenchymal destruction, it's aggressive. Please remember there are no fluid collections and the mortality is very high in type 1. In type 2 there are intra and extra renal fluid collections, so mortality is comparatively less. This entity is life threatening, the usual treatment is nephrectomy, hence it has to be diagnosed quickly and treatment has to be initiated rapidly. So what do we find? We find gas within the renal region. It can be mottled or striated or presented. The reniform shape may be maintained. Again, in ultrasound, you will find multiple hyperechoic foci with ring down artifacts and dirty shadowing. And CT is the modality of choice, where see here complete destruction of right kidney filled with gas and some kind of perirenal involvement. So this is type 1. There are no fluid collections at all, completely involved. This is type 1. There is involvement and gas within the kidney as well as small amount of fluid collection in the lateral border. This is type 2. Type 2 can convert into type 1 at any time. The mortality is comparatively less. The clinical prognostic factors of serum creatinine more than 1.4 or platelet count less than 60,000. It may convert from type 2 to type 1 where the mortality is very high. So just see whether there are any fluid collections or not and label it. Again, CT staging depending upon whether involvement of the renal parenchyma, perinephric tissue and Gerota's tissue, it is staged. Stage 1, 2 and 3. Pyelonephrosis is infected obstructive urinary tract. Anytime you have a patient with no urinary obstruction presenting with fever and flank pains, think of pyelonephrosis. Plain X-ray mass effect, IVU, non-excreting kidney, ultrasound dilated calcium system completely filled with echogenic debris. Again, enhancing internally debris-filled dilated canalicular system. This is the last thing. Xanthogranulomatous pyelonephritis. It's a rare chronic inflammatory disorder where the entire renal parenchyma is destroyed and replaced with lipid laden macrophages. It is associated with renal calculi in 75% of cases and repeated subclinical UTIs. And it's a great mimicker of malignancy, especially on imaging. So plain film you will find as large staghorn calculi. In advanced disease where there is large enlargement of the kidney, you may find obscuration of psoas margin. IVT, poor or no excretion. Ultrasound again enlarged kidney with a central echogenicity. That's a large staghorn calculus and distortion of normal renal architecture. CT is the diagnostic modality. This is the typical picture of CT. It gives non-functioning enlarged kidney with hypodense masses, multiple calculi, inflammatory changes again in the perinephric part. This is my last thing. I have missed something. If you have a theory question as non-tuberculous infection, I have missed something. What is that? That's HIV in renal infection. You have pneumocystis cerevisiae and candida and aspergillosis infections involving kidney. Very rare. But pneumocystis cerevisiae will give an appearance of nephrocalcinosis. So please remember, cortical calcifications are same. That's one point you have to add. Finally, I have two spotters. Yes, can't miss this. Typical pathognomonic lobar calcification, non-functioning kidney, tuberculosis. Then this one. Look at the ureters, please. Lateral displacement of the ureter. What else? Psoas abscess, ipsilateral psoas abscess. Final. What's the sign? Excellent. So this is the Behrpa sign. Where do you see? Yes. Thank you.